Welcome back to the Money Master Unleashed podcast. This is Adam Olson with you today, and I got a special guest with me, David. How are we doing today, David?
Oh, I'm doing great. Thanks a lot.
Awesome. Hey, thanks again for taking the time to do this. So, David, I know you were a previous teacher, and now you're in the financial services industry. You're a planner like myself, but you specialize in some things that I will say, very unfamiliar with. And I know from our last conversation after I talked to you, my mind kind of went crazy. And so, David, if you would give us a quick background on, kind of your teaching career and now what you do helping people.
Yeah, so I was a high school math teacher for 8 years. I started in 2012 and I left in 2020. And the whole purpose of leaving was to help other teachers with their finances in some way, shape, and form. And my wife actually presented me with the idea. She's like, you need to meet people where they're at and at their pain point, and that is student loans. And so in 2020, I received I went through the training and got the designation of Certified Student Loan Professional, CSLP. And since then, it has been an absolute whirlwind. But I've done a little bit over 500 consultations, student loan consultations, and helped
Wow,
people save a little bit over $15 million in student loan forgiveness. And it's crazy, isn't it?
that's wild.
Yeah. And so that's where a lot of the work that I do now. I'm a financial planner. I do retirement planning, investments, all of those things. But most of like 99% of my clients come to me for student loan planning first, and then we explore other things after that. And I help other advisors from across the country with their clients' student loan needs as well.
Yeah, that's cool. So, this episode's going to be helpful. Say we have parents that their kids have student loans, people with student loans themselves, or even, kids looking to get into college and taking on loans, parents looking at this for their kids. That's who we're really targeting today, and that's who this is going to benefit, right?
Yeah, definitely. Student
Okay.
loans affect almost it's an unreal amount of the population. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but so many people.
Yeah. And so what's really cool, I think, about what you've done is you've taken a pain point for people, saved them millions of dollars, and then in turn you also help them with the financial planning side of thing, like their investment strategies, correct?
Exactly. Yeah. So a lot of
Cool.
it comes down to like tax strategies and stuff like that
Yep.
as well. So the investments are definitely a piece for my ongoing clients, but the people that I work with just for student loan planning, we still touch on, tax strategies, filing statuses, different things like that as well.
Yeah. And so you work with clients digitally across the country, correct? So if somebody's say in California, Florida, Texas, Nebraska, they want to reach out to you, it's all digital, correct?
Exactly. Yep. I'm 100% remote all the time.
Cool. And so we'll link all your information in the show notes. So guys, if you have questions on student loans, David is the guy to talk to on this. He has a super affordable platform rate for you to work with him on. So I'd encourage you to check him out in the links below. So let's get started, David. Let's jump into, I wanted to talk to you about navigating student loans is the first thing that I wanted to get to. So say we have somebody that's first looking at student loans. Can you, very basic here. Can you walk me through, do you have a suggestion on how much student loans people get? What types can they get? And how do they work when we're first getting student loans for school?
Yeah, so that's an interesting question. And I think the answer is so hard on that one because student loans are an incredibly quick changing landscape. And so the rules behind student loans, even over the last 4 years, the rules have changed completely. And so before 2020, I would have said, take out as little as possible and try to, work your way through it and try to figure out, scholarships and things like that. Right now, at this exact moment, you might want to take out more, especially if you're working towards public service or a career in public service like nurse, teacher,
Got it.
doctor. Um, you know, it may be in your best interest, which is a weird thing to say, to take out the loans, not struggle your way through school trying to work and go to school, and then navigate that's public service loan forgiveness is the program, and it is working. It's 100% there. Anybody that takes out loans right now or that has already taken out loans, it is written into their promissory note. So it's not going away. And a lot of people are like, oh, is PSLF going to be on the chopping block? Legally, no, it is there.
Got
Now,
it.
it could change for those that are in high school right now that have never taken out a loan. But if you've taken out a loan, part of your contract is in those 70 pages of legalese that you sign is written in public service loan forgiveness. So it might be in your best interest to take out those. The other thing that I really strongly encourage is for parents who are getting ready to take out Parent Plus loans for their kids to really consider who the best person is to take out the loan, because it can make a big difference. So for example,
Really? Okay.
if you've got one spouse who works in public service and the other one doesn't, guess what? One person can qualify for public service loan forgiveness as a spouse, even taking out loans for their kids, whereas the other spouse might not qualify for anything. Another thing that I see time and time again is that the higher income earner says, okay, well, I earn all the money or most of the money, I should take out the loans. Well, that's not a good strategy at all when it comes to student loans, because in an income driven repayment plan, the lower income borrower gets a lower payment also. And
Oh,
so if
wow.
you were to file separately, you can actually, let's say one spouse stays at home, the other one works and makes all the money. Now,
Yeah.
I'm not going to get into the tax side because everybody's tax situation is going to be completely unique. But in just the student loan situation, if they were to file separately in a non-community property state, that spouse could have a $0 student loan payment. And and most times when you're taking out Parent Plus loans, we're talking about $100,000, $200,000 of loans, and they could have a $0 monthly payment moving forward on those loans by not having a job.
Crazy. That's crazy. Okay, so I want to unpack a few things. Sorry. So define public service. Like what type of occupations would those be?
Yeah, so teachers, nurses, doctors, firefighters, police officers, city workers, government workers, anybody who works at a nonprofit qualifies for public service loan forgiveness. There are
Love it.
so
Love
many
it.
positions.
Love it. Okay. And then when we're talking about Parent Plus, those are significantly larger loans, right?
Generally. So when
Yeah.
you're taking out Parent Plus loans, the reason why they are usually larger is because there's no cap. Well, there's a cap, but it's based on how much you need for school to cover the bill. Whereas
Yeah.
when you're an undergrad borrower, there's a certain amount that you can take out per year, and that changes year to year. But there's a certain amount. So if you come out of undergrad with student loans, it's going to generally, and they're your personal loans, it's going to be generally a lot lower. And then it opens up when you go to grad school. They start saying, okay, we're going to let you take on more loans because you have a higher potential to earn money in the future, is kind of what the government's thinking on that. But parent borrowers, there's no limit to this. So usually what will happen is
Got
a
it.
student borrower will take out, let's say, $5,000 their freshman year, somewhere right around there. I don't have those exact numbers, but somewhere around $5,000 is the limit on what they can take out. Well, if they're going to a private school that costs $50,000 a year, that means mom and dad are picking up 45,000 if they're covering that balance in between.
That's crazy. Okay, last thing before we move on. That's very interesting though. When you talked about the income-driven repayment program for these Parent Plus loans, say we got well, my wife stays at home, and say our oldest kid, we take out some Parent Plus loans, we do a married filing separately, let's say, and it works out that that student loan payment is zero, right? Is there any forgiveness attached to Parent Plus?
Yeah, so if you qualify for public service loan forgiveness, it's the same rules as if you had undergrad loans or regular like personal loans. 10 years and they're forgiven at the end of that time frame.
That is wild.
If you're not working towards public service, they can still be forgiven. Right now, it's after 25 years worth of payments, which sounds like a long time. But if you are having a $0 student loan
Yeah,
payment, or, it's like, why not?
yeah,
And then right now, as of today, the rules are that if you have that long-term forgiveness, the one thing to consider on that is that we call it the tax bomb at the end of it, but it's taxable
yep,
as in your year of forgiveness currently. Now,
right.
well, actually, not currently. So from now until December 31st, 2025, it is 100% tax-free. But after that time frame, right now, it's going to be taxable again. So
Got it.
something that
Understand.
people need to consider, if you have $100,000 and it's going to be added on as income in that final year, people need to start planning for that. And that's another thing that we talked about, as well as, making sure that you save something for the next 20, 25, whatever the years are that you need to pay, to make sure that you have that bill to cover the taxes at that final year.
Yeah, and so I mean, guys, quickly you can see how it's worth talking to David if you have student loans. I mean, you can see how easily you could get to $15 million with the people that you've worked with. That is insane. Some of the stuff you just told me, the savings that you can find for people is wild.
Well, let me
Let me,
add on one more thing about Parent
yeah,
Plus loans real quick, and I don't know if
yeah,
we're going to get into this later, but it's important to talk about. From now until July 1st of 2025, Parent Plus borrowers can do this thing called a double consolidation. And let me
Okay.
just tell you that the process for the double consolidation sucks. It's very, very challenging. It's very hard to navigate. It's not something that it's a service I provide, but I'll be honest, it's not actually something I enjoy because it's so challenging to go through all the paperwork and everything with the loan servicers. It's just a mess. But by doing that double consolidation, they can break out of the parent status on their loans and have it be like any other loan and be eligible for every repayment plan. Whereas if you don't do that, the only repayment plan that's available under the income driven is a repayment plan called income contingent repayment plan. And the terms of that repayment plan are not very good. So by doing this double consolidation, it opens up the door to the save repayment plan. That's kind of the hot topic right now. We'll probably talk more about that
Yep.
in a little bit.
Yep.
But that's so by doing that, and it has to the second consolidation has to be completed by July 1st, 2025, and it can take 6 to 9 months to do the full thing.
Oh,
So
wow.
we're talking about that. It's kind of a right now time frame of people really needing to start that process.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I'm just thinking of several people right off the top of my head that I need to get this over to sooner than later. So yeah, thank you for sharing that. I'd like to know your opinion on this, David. So when I go talk to high school kids quite a bit, local high school communities. So when I talk to these kids about taking loans out for school, my basic rule of thumb that I tell people is, find what your projected income is your first year once you graduate. So say you're going to be a nurse and say your estimated salary is 50 grand. Well, my suggestion to these kids is don't take out more than $50,000 in loans, right? Because say we got somebody that goes to Creighton University, for example, and they come out with 200 grand worth of student loans. You come out and you're only making 50,000. That puts you in a horrible financial spot. What do you think about that advice right there?
Yeah. So again, it comes down to what their career path is going to be.
Yeah. Yep.
If they're going towards public service loan forgiveness, the craziest thing about public service loan forgiveness, and actually not necessarily that, but the craziest thing about the income driven repayment plan is that it doesn't matter whether you have $20,000 or $20 million of loans. The repayment is based on your income and your family size only. So it doesn't matter what your loan balance is. So for somebody that's going to be a nurse, as you said, if they have a $50,000 a year, first of all, let me say this too. One of the strategies that I have with people that are just coming out of college, I can get them 3 years of $0 student loan payments right out of the gate. And then from that point, once they hit that first year where they're actually making payments, that means that they have 7 years worth of payments at that point. And a
Mm.
$50,000 salary on using the save repayment plan right now is going to put you at about 115 bucks a month of student loan payments. Somewhere, I'm just, that's a ballpark figure because I don't have my exact numbers, but somewhere in that ballpark of 115 to 150 probably.
Yeah.
So when you think about that for 7 years, it might make sense to just load up on the loans, not pay anything out of pocket, and then go for that forgiveness. Now the other side of that is, and this is the hard part whenever I'm doing planning, is telling people, hey, I worked as a high school teacher for 8 years, and the last couple of those years, I was ready to go, right? And and eventually it became the point where it's like, okay, I got to get out of here. But 10 years is not a small time frame, right?
Correct.
And you have to make sure you're making those payments. You have to make sure you're on an income driven. You've got to have direct loans. There's qualifications that you have to actually have and rules that you have to follow. But the biggest one is that you have to, if you're going to take out, let's say that this nurse took out $200,000 of student loans. They're working for 10 years in a public service job. You don't have an option, right? That's
Yeah.
too many. That's too much of loans to try to pay off in a not going through the public service loan forgiveness program.
Yeah.
So put in that time. Make sure that if you're going to go that route, that you're willing to put in 10 years, and that's a career path that's like, I'm going to stick with this no matter what, because otherwise, you've dug yourself a massive hole.
Yeah. Or, say that person has a family and they decide they want to stay at home,
Yeah.
and not work.
And
I
it
mean,
doesn't have to be 10 consecutive years. So they
you
could
can go
stop.
back.
They could stop, for a couple of years
Got
and
it.
then go back and get more credits. The credits would, I say credits, and when I say credit, 1 month of repayment in an income-driven plan while working at a public service role counts as a month of credit. And they're looking for
Got it.
120 months of credit. And it doesn't matter whether it takes you 10 years or 15 or 20 or 30, but you can still get those credits to count
Over time.
over time.
Got it. Got it. So I mean, I don't want to get into this real deep, but obviously our country isn't in the best financial shape, right? And this money to forgive these loans has to come from somewhere, right?
Yeah.
And see, to get what I'm getting at, how do you find that balancing point for people just to say, hey, I don't think it's appropriate to say, hey, load up on as many student loans as you can because they're all going to get forgiven. Somebody's paying it. We're paying it through our taxes. What's
Exactly.
that balancing point that you find?
That's why I love what I do, which is helping people with where they're already at. I don't do a lot of the
Not
pre,
beforehand.
I don't do
Got it.
a lot of that. So
Got
usually
it.
I'm meeting people where they're already at, and it's like, hey, you've already done this.
Yeah.
Let's try to dig our way out of it. The other thing that I think is, and this is a personal opinion, is that there's a big difference between the public service loan forgiveness and then any other just random student loan forgiveness. To me, if you're going to work as a public servant, you're taking on a role that is
Yeah.
going to pay you less than if you were in the private sector,
Yep.
and you're probably dealing with people's crap, for lack of a better word, of some sort of a
Yep.
public role, whether
Yep.
that's teacher or nurse. And it's like, we need to incentivize to a certain
I get it.
degree,
Yep.
otherwise we might not have those roles in the future. so
Yeah.
so there's that balancing act as well. But
Correct.
you're 100% right that somebody's paying for is not just free money. But at the same time, there's certain things that I think are worth spending money on, and public servants are
Is
in
one of
that
them.
role for me.
Yeah, I've never thought of it about that. So that is completely right. And that's kind of different from just saying, hey, we're wiping everybody's student loan debt off the table, regardless of what you do. That's
Yeah.
different. So yeah, I would agree with you on that.
It's interesting because a lot of people that are mad about the student loan side, of forgiveness side like that, don't seem to be mad necessarily about like GI bills, which are more or less the same thing. You put in a certain amount of time and you get a
Yep.
reward at the end for that thing. So
Yep. I never
so
thought
it's a
about it
government
here.
program, and it's, to me, it's like trying to minimize taxes or any other strategy that we do as financial planners. It's like, there's a program that's
Yep.
available. I'm going to try to find a way to utilize it. But yeah, I agree with you out of the gate though, that trying to find loopholes, like taking on more loans than you need, that's where it gets real gray and real questionable. And I don't try to advise people on what they should do necessarily
Yeah.
very often. Some friends and family will ask every once in a while, but most of the time, like 99% of the people I work with already have them, and they say, here's what I
Yeah.
have, what can we do?
Yeah. I like it. It was, there was a popular advisor that's on all the networks that was preaching, before they said the $10,000 student loan deal that was going to be completely forgiven. They were advising people to go load up on student loans because at least 10,000 because it's going to get forgiven next year. I
Yeah.
just don't like that.
Nope.
I
And
mean, just
also
to
that was
take
a
a
bad
loan to take
idea
a loan. Yeah,
because it didn't go through.
yeah, yeah. Joke's on you. Okay, sorry about that tangent there, but let's talk about now paying back the student loans, David. So we've got these student loans. I'm coming to you. Talk to me about these types of repayment programs, how they work, how you structure them, and what's available to people.
Yeah. So Parent Plus loans, the only thing that's available to you is either if you're not working towards PS. So let me start with this. There's income driven repayment plans,
Okay.
and then there's non-income driven repayment plans.
Yep, got it.
Most of the non-income driven repayment plans will not qualify for PSLF. The
Okay.
only one that does is the standard 10-year repayment plan. And the interesting thing about that is that if you have to pay for 10 years on PSLF, and then the standard repayment plan is 10 years, basically by the end of that repayment plan, you would have paid off your loans. The only reason why it's a thing right now is because during the COVID timeframe, people weren't having to make payments on their loans. So you could have been in the standard repayment and still be working your 10 years towards public service loan forgiveness, and come out with some forgiveness during that. So anyways, that's a
Yeah,
weird little offshoot that happened because of
interesting.
COVID.
Yeah.
But most of the time, if you are on income driven, you're working toward, if you're working towards PSLF, you have to be on an income driven plan. The other plans don't qualify. So let's kind of just make that distinction. So the ones that don't qualify are things like extended or graduated or if you've got something that says extended or graduated in it, you're not qualifying. And so that's something that you need to make a modification on as soon as possible, because your repayments are no longer counting moving forward. Then there's the income driven side. And inside the income driven, we've got income contingent repayment. We've got income based repayment. There's an old version of that and a new version of that. We've got pay as you earn, which actually there's some people that can still be on it that were grandfathered in, but it got canceled. You can no longer get into it as of July 1st, 2024. And then there used to be revised pay as you earn, which switched into saving on a valuable education. So can you imagine the confusion of people when you're trying to figure out what the best repayment plan is? Now, for almost everybody at this point, moving forward, it's going to be the save plan is going to be the best one. As of today, right now, they are not forcing people to do income recertification. So when you're on this income driven repayment plan, you have to recertify your income every year, except that they haven't made anybody do this during the COVID timeframes. So right now, if you have not done any sort of consolidations and you have not recertified your income, they're using 2019 tax data right now. So you might be better off staying in your current income driven plan and not switching to save, because life happens. A lot of life has happened from 2019 until right now. So maybe you made a lot less money in 2019. Maybe you were in college still. Maybe you were like, who knows what. So you could be paying on a loan or on your income driven that they're pulling your tax data from 2019. You could be paying a much lower payment. Once you have to start recertifying income, or if you're a new borrower, or if you've done any sort of a consolidation, moving forward, save is going to be the best one for everybody once you have to start doing that income recertification, especially because the pay as you earn plan is no longer available to people.
Got it.
But like with everything in the student loan world, save is up on the chopping block. There's legal action that there's people trying to cancel it and block it right now. And it is not like public service loan forgiveness we talked about earlier is written into your promissory note. Save is not written into this promissory note.
Oh, okay.
All of the rest of the repayment plans are. So the rest of the repayment plans are not going to go, well, pay got canceled, but the rest of them will still be there. So we'll see what happens with that save. But right now it is, so we're recording this on July 9th. So by the time this comes out, everything could change, by the way, because the student loan world is so crazy. But they tried to block save, or at least parts of it. So there's, if you have undergrad loans, I don't know how far deep into it we want to get, because trying to get the numbers of how we get the repayment plan can get a little bit, it might go over some people's head, or it might just confuse you. But there's when we get down to what's called discretionary income, for undergrad borrowers, they only have to pay 5% of it, whereas graduate and Parent Plus borrowers have 10%. That means that people with undergrad loans will pay less using the save plan. They tried to block that part of the save plan, and then the court system came back and said, nope, we're not going to block it. We're going to allow this. And so starting in August, people that have those undergrad loans are going to see a lower repayment than what they were paying before. So that's kind of but it could be on the chopping block. They're going to go and talk through it in the court system, and we'll see what happens in the future.
So these undergrad loans and grad loans, Parent Plus loans over here, you can use that save program for both of them.
Exactly. Yes.
Okay.
And again, for the Parent Plus loans, you have to do that double consolidation in order to use them. So you got to break the parent tag off of them.
Yep. Understand. Now, when these are forgiven eventually, say after 10 years, right? Then that's when this person takes this big tax hit for the forgiveness piece, right?
No. So public service loan forgiveness is 10 years. That's 100% tax free. If they're not going for public service loan forgiveness, it's going to go for 25 years, and then there will be a tax bomb at the end of that one.
Got it. And that's just a general blanket loan forgiveness, the 25-year one.
Exactly. So basically, they figure after you've made 25 years worth of repayments, they get it off your back type of thing. And it has to be under an income-driven plan, and it has to be based on your income. And so there's, to be honest, there's very few people that I talk to where it's worth them pursuing that 25-year forgiveness. Usually what we're talking about is, we'll call it what it is, but elderly people who took out loans for like their kids or whatever, or
Got it.
who are
Got it.
living on state income or social security type income. It's for people that maybe if one person's working and one person's not. There's some very specific cases, but most of the time it's not going to make sense, especially if you've got like, and we're also talking about really large loan balances, because
Yeah.
by the time you make payments over 25 years, most people will have paid them off before they get to that point.
Understand. Okay. Does it ever make sense for somebody to consolidate outside of this student loan programs? You know what I mean?
Yeah. So
Like say go to SoFi or something like that.
pre-2020, the answer would have been yes.
Okay.
Get a lower interest rate, and you could drive that payment down and stuff like that. Right now, I would say absolutely not. But the only reason why is because they keep getting they're making amendments to the student loan world all the time. I would want to hold on to it, like what's gonna, first of all, the rate difference right now, I'm guessing that, and I haven't pursued looking into this, so I don't know what the exact rates are, but trying to get money right now in this interest rate environment, it's probably going to be high, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I don't think SoFi or anything like that, especially if you've taken out loans in the past, most of the people that I see tend to be in like the 30 to 45 age range, and we're looking at 6 to 7%, well, like 5.5 to 7% interest rates. And I don't think you're going to get better than that refinancing right now.
No.
The current people taking out loans right now, I've seen Parent Plus, the government Parent Plus loans are 9%, and graduate loans are 8%, and undergrad loans are above 7% right now, which is wild. I mean, that's a if you're taking out $100,000 at 9%, like that's a bill right there.
Yeah.
So it might be worth it in the future. And the thing is that it's so hard, because once you do that refinancing, there's no going back.
Yeah, you're stuck with it.
So you're stuck with it. And so the question is that I would pose to people is, do you think student loans do you think that the system around student loans is getting more lenient or less lenient? And my answer right now would be it's getting more lenient. They're trying to find ways to help borrowers. And so I would want to have my loans in a federal program where I qualify for potential forgiveness somewhere down the road.
Yeah, that makes sense to me.
But it's all guessing. That's the hardest part. It's all guessing.
Yeah, you don't know.
Yeah.
You're just making the most informed decision you can. Going back to that income verification, why aren't they updating that every year? And is that something that's going to start in the future? They haven't done it since 19, you said.
Yeah, so because of COVID, basically they stopped doing it during that time frame, and then they were going to originally bring it back last year at the end of the year, and they kept kicking that. So there was a bunch of waivers that have been out the last couple of years, and I don't know that we need to get too far into them, because as of right now they're over. And so the last one ended on June 30th of 2024, and it allowed people to go back and get some previous credits and to do some pretty wild things, actually. But they're over as of today. So, and I don't know if they're going to bring them back or not. If they are, it could change the game again. But as of right now, they're over. And so because of that, though, they just kept kicking that income recertification down the road as well. As of right now, the first time that you'd have to recertify your income is if the people that have to recertify in November of 2024. Now, that's not to say that you, the borrower out there, would have to do that income recertification in November 2024. You have an income recertification date that's tied to your loans. And so if your recertification date is October of 2024, guess what? You don't have to recertify until October of 2025, which is crazy, because you're still using that old data. If your loans have to be recertified in November, then they would have to be recertified in November 2024. And then every month after that, you're going to have to recertify if it's your month. So for somebody that has, right now we're in July. So if you're a July 2024 recertification, you wouldn't have to recertify until July 2025. And where to find that? It's very hard to find. It's inside of a data file in your student aid. There's file called an NSLDS file. And they tuck this information in there, but they don't really make it easy for the general public to access this file. Now it might show up on your loan servicer website, but it's just so hard to find. But that's the answer, is that you don't have to recertify until you're. But also, let's go here. The loan servicers have been trying to get people to recertify, kind of sort of illegally. I mean,
Yeah,
they want
I
you to
get
pay
it.
more
I get
money.
it. Yeah,
They want you to
yeah,
pay. And so they've been trying to coerce people, let's put it that way, because the loan servicers are really, they're out for themselves. They're
correct.
not really helping borrowers. I mean, they kind of are, but they give so much misinformation when you call in and try to talk to them that I question if they actually are working for the borrowers or not, or working for themselves.
Man, David, because that can make a big difference in your payment. So, I mean, since this inflation stuff started happening in 2020, if your real wages haven't went up by over 22%, you're actually lost money, right?
Yeah, yeah,
And so most of these occupations, if you're making 20% plus more income since 2019, that's going to drastically affect your repayment program. And you're saying some of these administrators have been reaching out to people, asking them for income certification. Technically, you don't have to give it to them.
exactly, 100%.
Interesting.
The other
Interesting.
thing though is that, and this is where it just gets so complicated, and it's what keeps me in a job, but it's because it's based on your income and your family size. So, if I look back to 2019 tax data, guess what? I had 0 children. Now I've got 3. And one of the weird things from a student loan perspective is that they consider a child at moment of conception. So as part of your family size. So I went from
Interesting.
a family size of 2 to a family size of now 5 in that time frame. And so that would drastically change my student loan repayment also. So it would be a balancing act of, did my income go up enough to change also with my family size? And maybe it would be better off for me to do an income recertification and bring my payment down lower, or maybe it's better to leave where I'm at right now with the current system from 2019. So it's one of those where the average person who's listening to this probably is getting screwed a little bit. And I say
Oh,
that
yeah,
that
yeah.
that I believe, and this is not necessarily just to push myself, but by meeting with somebody that knows what they're doing with student loans, I think 95% of borrowers out there are leaving money on the table, and that's
That's
not
wild.
necessarily to push my services alone. There's a certified student loan professional. There's a website where there's a bunch of different people that work with a bunch of different occupations and specialize in different things. But I would find somebody that can work with you and what you're looking for, because I guarantee, without guaranteeing, the 95%, like I said, of people are leaving money on the table, or
A lot of
could
money.
have a lot of money, could have a drastically lower repayment plan, could be getting more credits towards public service loan forgiveness. Maybe they don't even know that they qualify for public service. So there's a lot of reasons
Yeah.
why you might want to meet with somebody and just find out.
Yeah. I mean, your breadth of knowledge is insane with this student loan stuff. And I want to so before we get into how you work with people, things that you look for, how you talk to people about these things, how you save them money, I want to talk on this last thing first. So when we see all these headlines of, you know, Biden forgives X amount in student loans, what exactly is going on there? Like, has this stuff gotten through? Who's getting this stuff forgiven? How does that work?
Yeah, the probably the right answer is that we're all political pawns.
Yeah, I
And
know.
so, they're throwing out headlines. Most of it is that they do the student loan forgiveness for public service loan forgiveness in batches. And so they will batch together a whole bunch, and they will wait. So like, if you put in an application today, let's say that you hit your 120th month and you put
Yep.
your application in, you're not going to hear forgiveness for 5 or 6 months. It
Oh,
takes
wow.
forever. And
Huh.
they'll batch it together with billions of other dollars of people's loans, and then make this big announcement of, hey, look what we did for you. And it's like, well, yes ish. PSLF is a program that was put in place by
It's been
Bush
there.
back in 2007. So
Yeah.
it's not necessarily, now they made some modifications. The Biden administration made some modifications, but the thing is that they're doing it as a, let's run a headline, right?
Got it.
So it's
Okay.
not that they're doing anything too special, and it's not that it's, hey, this is Biden's doing. It's that enough people have qualified under the current
Understand.
rules, and then they push it out.
Okay. So it's not, and again, this is just headline reading, but it's not like they're just saying, hey, everybody age 35 in the United States gets 50 grand worth of student loans forgiven. It's part of the public student loan forgiveness program that's been in place for years and it's just happening.
That there's other things that are coming out too. So they're trying to do this thing called borrower's defense, and basically saying like, hey, there's a bunch of colleges that were out there that screwed people over and weren't real colleges. Let's forgive that college debt for all the people that got screwed over by these Ponzi scheme colleges, right? So,
Yeah,
and I can't think of one. Well, and I probably don't need to be throwing their names out there anyways. But
yeah,
you
yeah,
know, there's look up like, hey, what's a fake school that somebody went to, you know, type of thing.
yeah,
And so they're trying to the Biden administration. One of the things they're doing is they're trying to figure out how they can make some of the student loan wrongdoings of the past better. And so that's
yeah,
like the IDR waiver that was out and the PSLF limited waiver that was out before. They're trying to fix some of these things. Same thing with the borrower's defense. So it's like, hey, you know, there's a bunch of schools that were taking people's money and not providing the service that they said they were going to provide. Let's
Yep.
try to help these
Yep.
people out. And so they're
Yep.
forgiving some of that. But then when they do that, of course, like they package it together, they make a big announcement. So then it's like, then you see that's when you get the comments on, you know, social media of like, you know, the back and forth of people mad about student loan forgiveness. It's like, none of it's just blanket forgiveness. It's not like
Yeah.
you're sitting
Look
out there and you're
into it a
probably
little
going to get
more.
it. Yeah.
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 Yeah. Cool. Okay. So now I want to talk about, I mean, if you've listened to this episode, it should be extremely clear to you that if you have student loans, that you should be talking to David about these type of things, because the amount of savings, the amount of knowledge that you have, I mean, we're talking thousands of hours worth of knowledge that you can talk to David and he can help you with your student loans, which is insane to me. And you charge a fraction of what you're going to save people, which is wild to me too, how affordable it is. But talk to somebody, say, me and my wife have student loans. We've graduated and now we're looking at repayment programs. How do I work with you? How does this work?
Yeah, so I always start off with a $150 30-minute consultation. What I do during that time frame is I will pull up that file. So I'm going to have you send me that ahead of time. So it's called the NSLDS file. I call it the student loan data file.
Yep.
And we pull it up during our 30-minute call, and I go through it with you and show you exactly where you're at right now and what some strategies are that we can look at for the potential future. Some people use that information and they say, yep, I'm good. I'm going to go do whatever the thing is on my own. It's not really something I suggest overall because the system's so tricky and the processes are so complicated. But you could do that. You could say, okay, I've got this information. I'm going to run with it and do some DIY after that. Most people will engage with me for a plan of some sort. So we do a student loan plan and full implementation during that time frame. So I start at $600 for that, but the $150 from the consultation comes off the top. So $450 more, and then it kind of goes up based on complexity. So the $450 is when I'm working with individuals who have loans that are working towards public service loan forgiveness type of thing. If you've got two people, it goes up. If you've got Parent Plus loans, it goes up. There's some different price tags on there, but I do try to make it affordable for people.
That's
The people
extremely
that
affordable. Extremely affordable.
And the thing is that so many people need help, and that's kind of where I try to meet them at. The other thing that I would say is that I do my best work for those that are working on public service loan forgiveness or Parent Plus borrowers who are trying to break that Parent Plus tag off there and do that double consolidation. If you are not in one of those categories, I would suggest looking into the CSLP directory, and there's a ton of advisors that you can find and different people working with different specialties. So, for example, doctors will come to me and say, "Hey, I'm working towards public service loan forgiveness," and I'll say, "Yes, you are, and that is technically what I said, but doctors might not be the best person for me." And the reason why is because I work with so many teachers that I understand. Not to throw teachers under the bus, but they're not making the same income as a doctor might.
Yeah.
And there's different things to take into consideration. And I do have a ton of contacts in the student loan world. So if you just shoot me a message, I'm active on X or Twitter. But if they need somebody that they think, hey, I don't know if you can help me. Can you point me in the right direction? I'm happy to do that too. But I would look on the CSLP directory and find somebody that you think, could help you with your situation.
Yeah.
Because they're also unique. And as I've talked about today, like the information that I've got is from years of doing this and hundreds of consultations, and other people have been doing that same thing with their specialty too.
Yeah. It's super cool to talk to you because your knowledge in this is so deep. It's just wild what I've learned talking to you today. Before we close, is there anything else that we needed to hit on? Anything I missed? Any closing thoughts that you have?
I think the biggest thing is just that there are options out there. And so most people that I've come across say, this is my student loan payment. And I say, that's what you're paying, right? That's what you're paying. It's not necessarily what your student loan payment could be. And most people just think that this is what the loan servicers told me, this is what I owe. And it's never that case. Like
Yeah.
there's always, maybe not always, there's almost always things that we can do to navigate around that. Whether, and sometimes the thing that everybody could do is, if you're making a payment and you want it to be lower, just put more money pre-tax. So put more money into your 401k, your 403b, your HSA, your dependent care FSAs, all of those things that we use as planning tools. That would lower your taxable income, which lowers your student loan payment. So there's tons of different strategies. There's tons of different things to think about, but the student loan payment that they're telling you is not the end all be all. There are strategies and there's ways to lower that and move things around.
Yeah. So even if you're working on setting up student loan repayment programs, or you're currently paying on one, David can assist with those type of things.
100%. Yeah.
Got it. That's awesome. And again, I'm going to link all your information in the description here. I'll put your website, that link tree, and your contact information. I think you're going to be a great resource for people in my network to reach out to with their student loan needs. So thank you so much.
Yeah, I really appreciate it. I'm happy to be able to do it.
Yeah. And you're a Midwest guy, which is nice to have on.
Definitely, right down here in Kansas City, Missouri.
Yeah, that's awesome. Okay. Well, I know you got a lot going on, so thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. Take care.
Yeah, thank you very much.
This podcast is for educational purposes only and may include references to concepts that have legal and or tax implications. It's not to be construed as legal or tax advice. Such information or opinions is subject to change without notice and is not intended to use as an offer or solicitation with respect to the purchase or sale of any security, insurance products, or offer of individual investment advice. Any strategies discussed may not be suitable for everyone. Mutual of Omaha Investor Services, Inc. does not provide legal or tax advice. Please consult with your appropriate professional regarding your personal situation prior to making any financial decisions. Securities and advisory services offered through Mutual of Omaha Investor Services, Inc., member FINRA SIPC. Riser Insurance is not affiliated with Mutual of Omaha Investor Services.
Investing involves risk, including the possible loss of principal. Past performance does not guarantee future results. Diversification does not guarantee a profit or protection lost against loss in a declining market. Purchase of life insurance is subject to meeting underwriting requirements. There is no guarantee if an individual will be insured. Annuities are long-term investments designed for retirement purposes. Withdrawals of taxable amounts are subject to income tax, and if taken prior to 59.5, a 10% federal penalty tax may apply. Guarantees are backed by the claims paying ability of the issuer and are subject to their terms and conditions.